Well, that wraps it up for the Folds of Honor Quiktrip 500. I'm Keegan Schneider. I'm going to be here to talk about it and how the fantasy team went today and how my advice and all that, those plans ended up going out. So, without further ado, let's hop right on into this. The Folds of Honor Quiktrip 500. What I think of the race. The race was, it flew by. For a 500-mile race, it's about as quick of a 500-mile race as you're going to find, especially only 2 cautions for incident in this race today. We had a couple other incidents outside of that, which included after the first competition yellow. William Byron, one of my drivers that I told you guys you should stay away from on the fantasy lineup, doesn't have a good track record here. That continued again today. Finished outside the top 30. He had a little contact off the restart, cut a left rear tire down, and sure enough, he ended up making contact, he had a left rear tire already going down, then he made contact with somebody else as it was. Right rear tire went down into the outside wall he went. I believe he finished about 11 laps down outside the top 30. It was a non-factor after that point. He was clinging on in the back half of the top 10 up until then. That ruined any sort of shot of him having a good day points-wise. So that was an incident that didn't bring out a caution. One that did bring out a caution at the end of stage 1 was John Hunter Nemechek going for a spin off of turn 4. Saved it though, never hit anything, went through the grass, didn't tear the splitter up. So good on him. He was able to fight back. I believe he finished inside the top 20. But a tough break nonetheless for John Hunter Nemechek. So it brought out the caution, bunched everybody back up for about an 8-lap restart to the end of stage 1, in which Martin Truex Jr. got the win. Truex dominated most of stage 1. While he ended up going on to win it, and much of the same in stage 2. Another stage where we only had one incident with a front row motorsport car spinning off of turn number 4 right at the end of the stage again, but this time it was Michael McDowell again, made the save. We had about a 4 to 5 lap restart. I can't remember exactly how many laps were left, but we had a 4 or 5 lap to go restart in stage 2. A lot of the same. Blaney jumped from about 4th to 2nd on the restart, but really nobody was able to challenge the driver with the clean air of Martin Truex Jr. there, so Martin Truex Jr. was able to get the Stage 2 victory. So Truex with a pretty good points today just with that alone. And then we go into the third and final stage of the race. It was looking like Truex's race to win all day long, but then coming into the third stage, Kevin Harvick won the race off the pit road at the stage break to get the track position out in front of the field. And he never looked back. His car, they made an adjustment of some sort between that and the track slowly coming to him with the track temp dropping as the day went on with the cloud cover. That definitely helped Kevin Harvick out quite a bit. Obviously, again, it came to him, plus he had the clean air off the restart, and that ended up ultimately being the last restart of the race because the third and final stage went caution free for the final. I don't know exactly when they went green, but I know the stage was 115 laps. They had a couple pit stops. Some guys were able to stretch it into one stop, hitting around halfway. Clint Boyer had a tough break. He was having a problem with the right rear tire. It was starting to wear like right down the middle. He was really loose most of the day, or had a looser setup that was putting a lot of stress on the right rear tire. So he was having problems with that, having to pit about 10 to 15 laps earlier than everybody else, and ultimately with about 15 laps to go or so, he could not make it to the end. He had to pit. The tire was coming apart. So tough break for him. He was running in the top 10 all day long. Was looking at about a 9th place finish if that didn't happen. He ended up finishing outside the top 15 and 1 lap down by the end of the race. But outside of that, again, that didn't bring out a caution. He was able to make it onto pit road, which luckily enough for him, that's why his teammate Kevin Harvick ended up getting the victory. So again, Kevin Harvick gets the win. That's his second win of the season. Martin Truex Jr. ended up, he wasn't second for the longest time. Kyle Busch got around him late, so Kyle Busch actually ended up P2 with Truex falling back to P3. Let's just take a look at the rest of your results. Again, not much to talk about that one other than Kevin Harvick, another win on the season. He came in as the points leader. He'll definitely leave as the points leader. Didn't max out on points today by any means. He didn't score as many stage points as I would have hoped, but he was my pick to win, so I got a lot of points there on the fantasy team. Plus, again, Kevin Harvick, when it comes to Atlanta Motor Speedway, he seems to be the guy to beat. I don't know if he led the most laps or not today because Truex was out in front quite a bit, but he did lead a lot of laps, and he led the most important lap, which was the final lap of the race. So again, let's take a look at the finishing results and see where your favorite drivers ended up lining up. Alright, so let's take a look at the finishing results here in today's race. Kevin Harvick again gets the victory with Kyle Busch in second. Martin Truex Jr. in third, but the margin of victory was about 3.5 seconds for Kevin Harvick. Again, he pretty much dominated the final stage of the race. Even with Martin Truex Jr. pitting about a lap or two earlier than Kevin Harvick, he couldn't close the gap there. Raced to him within about a second and a half, mainly due to the lap traffic by the time they just came out of the pits, but Harvick was able to slowly increase that lead again right at the end of it. So that is your top three. Ryan Blaney rounds fourth. Denny Hamlin rounds out the top five with a quiet day, but finishing top five. So that's 3 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyotas in the top five. The only other Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota obviously would be Eric Jones, and he had a problem. He was running in the top 10 for most of the day up until he had his issue. He had not one but 2 tires go down on a restart, similar to what William Byron did. Didn't hit the wall, had to limp it on the pit road, didn't get the caution he needed, and that pretty much ended any sort of shot he had of winning. I think he had a pit road speeding penalty as well in the final stage on the final stop of the race, so just adding insult to injury there. Kurt Busch, 6th place finish. That is really great for that team. Again, he had to start at the rear of the field today because he failed optical scanning 3 times, in fact, which meant he had to come through with a pass-through penalty. The commitment, the caution for the competition yellow at the very beginning of the race, you would have thought would have helped him, but he was not the first driver 1 lap down, could not get the free pass there, so he had to wait until that first caution for incident came out right around the lap 100 mark towards the end of the first stage. So that finally was able to give Kurt Busch his lap back, and he was able to fight through the field at the start of stage 2. So not a lot of stage points for Kurt Busch, but a 6th place finish nonetheless, pretty solid. Jimmy Johnson with a quiet and solid day as well, finishing in 7th. He was running back half of the top 10 the entire final stage of the race. Started mid-pack, was running there most of the beginning of the race, was just slowly working on that car, getting it faster and faster throughout the course of the day, and that's how he ended up 7th. Chase Elliott was in the top 10 pretty much all day, but was a non-factor as far as the win went. He finished 8th. Brad Keselowski 9th, and Joey Logano, who was really a non-factor all day, was running close to 20th the entire race, but for somehow he was able to climb that car back into the top 10 to have all 3 Penske drivers finish in the top 10. Those were the only drivers to finish on the lead lap, were the top 10, with Austin Dillon finishing 11th. Alex Bowman was a non-factor all day. He finished 12th again, and he was another one of the drivers I told you guys to stay away from for the fantasy lineup. Him and William Byron were those 2 guys. My dark horses, Christopher Bell and Matt DiBenedetto. Bell finished in 18th. He had a 25-second pit stop while he was running inside the top 15 a little earlier in the race, and actually on the lead lap. That cost him a lap and a few spots that he was actually able to gain back. He was back to about 23rd, so he did gain some of those spots back, but that was a tough break for him. And Matt DiBenedetto had a tire come apart late when he was running in 11th, having a decent day for himself. He was at the time the last driver on the lead lap, but ended up finishing a lap down in 25th. So let's take a look at your DNFs here in this one. Again, really not any outside of BJ McLeod and Timmy Hill. McLeod, of course, kind of starting parked at the end. He was using his Talladega car, I guess, because his Bristol car wrecked, and that was the car that they were going to retake to this track. So, yeah, that was definitely interesting there. So, yeah, really no DNFs to record. William Byron, 33rd, like I mentioned. He actually finished 12 laps down, but he had that issue a little bit earlier in the race. And Eric Jones, 3 laps down, 28th with his couple of issues that he had in this race today. So now let's take a look at how the fantasy team did today, because we had a pretty solid day there. So one of the best days I have had all season for fantasy happened here today at Atlanta. It's really good when you have first, third, fifth, sixth, and eighth all in your starting lineup as far as drivers with their points scored. So not necessarily the finishing positions, but all the drivers that I had did all finish in the top 9 too, so that definitely helped. And even Logano stuck in with the top 10 in the garage. He just didn't have a lot of stage points, so that's why I put him in the garage. Ultimately, he was nowhere close to the next closest driver. Well, I guess he was kind of to Brad Keselowski, but still didn't leave any points in the garage, so that was a good sign. So yeah, that's pretty much all. And then obviously because Ford and Kevin Harvick got the win, I got 20 bonus points as well for the day. So we scored really well. I think in the NASCAR Weekly Podcast League, I was wrong one. Okay, so yeah, NASCAR Weekly Podcast League had a pretty good day. Again, first, third, fifth, sixth, and eighth as far as the points scored. Logano ended up 11th in my garage, so not terrible there, but that's okay. obviously, all your guys on the top 8, that's pretty good. Second, as far as the leaderboard went for this week, but obviously a very good day in the point standings. And predicting the winner correctly. So I'll have my record as far as the drivers I've predicted correctly this season down in the comments section below. Also in the comments section below, comment what were your thoughts on the race? Were your predictions right? How'd your guys' fantasy team do? And look forward to doing this again for Wednesday's race at Martinsville, the first Martinsville race of the year, under the lights as well on a Wednesday night, so that'll be fun. And that'll be a good way to start my off week for work. So I'll hope to see you guys then. For more daily NASCAR content, hit the subscribe button down below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. And hit that bell notification button if you do wish to subscribe so you guys never miss a future upload. And I will see you guys next time.